Black CEO, thrown off a luxury yacht party minutes later. Everyone begged him to stay. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Step off this yacht. Now! The words cut through the ocean air like glass shattering against steel. Every conversation on deck froze. Every smile stalled halfway. The woman who said it stood beneath the golden glow of the yacht's lanterns, tall, elegant, and armed with arrogance polished to perfection. Her sequined silver gown shimmered with each breath, as if even the light conspired to flatter her cruelty. The man she spoke to didn't flinch. He was tall, dark-skinned, the kind of presence that made silence feel intentional. His tuxedo was immaculate, tailored to quiet power. Yet in this moment, surrounded by laughter dipped in champagne, he was treated as an intruder. A murmur rippled through the guests. Someone whispered, "Did he sneak on board?" Another smirked. "Probably, staff who got confused." The woman's lips curved into a tight smile, the kind that pretends to be gracious, but drips venom beneath. She raised her voice just enough for the audience she'd gathered. "This area is for guests, not hired help. You've had your photo op. Now please step down before it gets awkward." The crowd chuckled. Softly, cruelly, like a pack pretending it had manners. Behind them, the sea murmured against the hull, a low reminder that dignity drowns slower than ego. The man remained still. His gaze didn't rise, didn't plead, only measured. His voice, when it came, was calm enough to chill the air. "Are you certain you know who I am?" The woman laughed, that brittle kind of laughter that cuts itself on its own sharpness. "Oh, we know exactly who you are," she said. "And this yacht isn't your kind of crowd." There it was, the sentence that always finds its way into luxury rooms. Your kind. Two words that turn class into a weapon. Two words that still echo centuries deep. A waiter froze mid-step. The orchestra faltered, the strings trembling like nerves exposed. One guest raised a phone, recording hunting humiliation for entertainment. The man looked toward the horizon. The sea was endless, indifferent. Then he turned back, meeting her eyes. The calm in his stare made her flinch, just slightly. For the first time, she seemed unsure of her power. He adjusted his cufflinks. "I'll step off," he said quietly, "but you should be very sure who's walking away." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Malcolm. As he descended the short stairway toward the lower deck, the laughter behind him resumed forced, hollow, nervous. What no one noticed was the faint vibration from his watch, a single message flashing across the sleek black screen. Authorization active. Ownership transfer complete. Above, the hostess lifted her glass again, smiling for the cameras. She had no idea the yacht she stood on had just stopped belonging to her, and the man she'd told to step off was the only one who truly could. The laughter returned slowly uneven, like waves slapping against the hull after a storm. Champagne glasses clinked again, but the sound had lost its sparkle. The hostess, Veronica Line, adjusted her diamond bracelet and whispered to a nearby guest, loud enough for it to travel. "Honestly, some people think buying a suit gets them an invitation." The comment rippled through the air, invisible but lethal. Guests exchanged looks, the kind of smiles that hide discomfort behind practiced indifference. The yacht's string quartet struggled to resume its rhythm, but even the violins sounded reluctant. At the edge of the deck, Malcolm Reed stood motionless, framed by the soft shimmer of the Mediterranean night. The city lights glimmered in the distance. But here, the glow belonged to Veronica, or so she thought. She turned toward him again, unwilling to let the moment pass quietly. "I'm sure you meant no harm," she said with a tone dipped in condescension. "But this is a private charter. Investors only." Her words landed like pebbles dropped into still water, small, but meant to disturb the surface. Around her, men in tailored linen suits chuckled. One lifted his glass. "No harm done," he said, grinning. "Let him grab a drink somewhere he fits." Veronica smiled, emboldened by their approval. She took a step closer, her perfume thick with entitlement. "We host these events to celebrate success," she continued, "not aspirations." A few guests laughed, some nervously, some cruelly. A young server passing by hesitated, unsure whether to step in or disappear. The tension was palpable. It shimmered like heat over the sea. Malcolm finally spoke, his tone even, his diction precise. "You're right," he said softly. "Success should be celebrated, especially when it's misunderstood." A few people glanced at him, uncertain whether he was being humble or sharp. Veronica tilted her head, smirking. "How poetic," she said. "I'll remember that." She reached for a tray of Bordeaux and, with an exaggerated gesture, poured herself a glass, the liquid catching the deck lights like molten garnet. But as she turned, her elbow brushed the rim of another glass. The crimson wine spilled forward, a streak of color arcing through air and splattering across Malcolm's sleeve. The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh God." Another filmed. Veronica froze for a beat, then laughed too loud, too brittle. "Oh dear," she said. "Now you really look out of place." The words struck harder than the spill. Every eye on deck found him now, the stain on white fabric, the symbol of unwanted presence. The night wind shifted, carrying the scent of salt and something faintly metallic. Even the ocean seemed to wait. Malcolm took a slow breath. He didn't move to wipe it away. His voice, when it came, was calm enough to unnerve. "It's just fabric," he said. "It washes off. Some stains don't." The line hung in the air, quiet but heavy. Veronica's smile faltered. A nervous flutter passed through the crowd. Somewhere, a champagne cork popped, the sound sharp, almost like a gunshot breaking the silence. Before anyone could speak, Malcolm turned, facing the open sea. The reflection of the city flickered across his sleeve. Red over white humiliation turned to warning. Behind him, whispers began to multiply. "Who is he? I thought he was press." "No," someone said, "he's with Aurelius." "Next 10 waiter." Veronica laughed again, forced and thin. "Relax, everyone," she said, trying to reclaim her stage. "He's leaving soon." But even she could feel it. Something in the air had changed. The night no longer belonged to her. On the lower deck, Malcolm's phone vibrated once. A message appeared. "Team ready. Say the word." He didn't reply. Not yet. He simply looked back toward the golden deck where laughter pretended to live. And the Mediterranean wind, once gentle, now carried the chill of reckoning. The laughter didn't return this time. It fractured, lingering only in nervous fragments that dissolved into the hum of the yacht's engines. The air changed texture, thicker, colder, as if the Mediterranean itself had turned its face away. Guests who moments ago laughed freely now looked down at their glasses, pretending interest in the reflections of the deck lights. Veronica Line adjusted her shawl, forcing a smile. "Well," she said too brightly, "now that the excitement's over, let's get back to enjoying the evening." But her voice trembled just enough to betray her unease. The captain glanced from the upper bridge toward the main deck, sensing tension that didn't fit the rhythm of luxury. Somewhere deep in the hull, a soft mechanical thud echoed a stabilizer, recalibrating, or maybe something else. Malcolm Reed stood near the railing, silent, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The spilled wine on his sleeve had already begun to dry, darkening into something like blood under moonlight. A few feet away, Veronica's friends whispered in short, clipped tones. "Who invited him?" "I thought security checked the list." "He said something about ownership?" The words skittered across the deck like loose glass. Malcolm lifted his wrist slightly. The digital watch on his arm glowed once, a single blue pulse before dimming again. He didn't look at it. He didn't have to. The signal had already been sent. Below deck, an engineer blinked at his monitor as a silent command streamed across the yacht's control network. The charter ID began flashing ownership authorization override. The system paused, requesting biometric confirmation. A file attached itself automatically. Verified M. Read. On the upper deck, no one noticed. Not yet. A gust of sea wind swept through, rippling the white tablecloths, extinguishing 2 candles. The shadows stretched longer across the polished wood. The violinist mid-song faltered, her bow trembling on the string. Veronica's diamond bracelet caught the light as she raised her hand again, trying to reclaim the mood. "Music!" she ordered sharply. "Please, keep playing." We're not letting one misunderstanding ruin a perfect evening. But no one lifted their glass this time. Eyes darted between Malcolm and the hostess. Something unspoken was moving through the room, a realization not yet shaped into words. A waiter, young and anxious, approached Malcolm hesitantly with a napkin. "Sir," he whispered, "would you like me to—" Malcolm shook his head once. "You've done nothing wrong." The tone was quiet but carried authority, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. The waiter nodded, stepping back, his eyes wide. He didn't understand why, but he suddenly stood a little straighter. Veronica forced another laugh, brittle as the crystal she held. "You really should learn when to leave gracefully," she said, her smile rigid. "Some doors close for a reason." Malcolm turned to her, expression unreadable. "Yes," he said softly, "and some never belong to you." In his running back down men, for a heartbeat, the only sound was the sea brushing against the hull. Then, as if responding, a chime rang from somewhere below deck, low, metallic, final. The lights along the starboard side dimmed by a fraction. A few guests exchanged uneasy looks. Veronica frowned. "What was that?" The captain's voice came faintly over the intercom. "Apologies, minor system recalibration." Malcolm's gaze didn't waver. He knew better. The night had shifted. The power had moved. And no one, not even Veronica Liney in her diamond armor, had noticed that the yacht no longer answered to her. "Somewhere beyond the deck," thunder murmured low over the horizon, not enough to startle, just enough to warn. Malcolm adjusted his cufflinks, the gesture calm, deliberate, ceremonial. Then he whispered under his breath, too low for the others to hear, "Let's see who's really aboard." The wind answered first. The Mediterranean night stretched endlessly, stars scattered like glass on dark water. Above, the party tried to resume its rhythm, laughter too loud, music slightly off-tempo, but something invisible had cracked. Beneath that polished surface, the truth began to hum like an approaching storm. Malcolm Reed stood by the railing, phone in hand, the blue glow flickering across his features. He didn't type a word. He didn't need to. Somewhere in the clouded circuitry of a billion-dollar network, his silence was a command. To the crowd, he was still a nameless guest who'd wandered too close to privilege. To the world that mattered, the one hidden in spreadsheets, offshore holdings, and encrypted accounts, he was the architect. For 15 years, Malcolm had been a ghost in the corridors of power. The founder and CEO of Aurelius Maritime Holdings, a conglomerate that quietly owned more than half the vessels docked along the Riviera, luxury yachts, cargo fleets, private marinas, all bearing names that whispered influence, never shouted it. He had built it from nothing. 20 years ago, Malcolm was a 23-year-old mechanical engineer, rejected from a yacht design firm because, as one senior partner had said, "Clients expect a different kind of face in this business." He remembered that sentence the way sailors remember storms. It didn't sink him, it mapped his route. From that moment, he'd worked in silence. He designed, invested, partnered, and vanished before recognition could catch up. When Aurelius was founded, he made sure no public record tied his face to the empire. Even the press called him the Maritime Phantom. He preferred it that way. Power without spotlight. Ownership without applause. Now standing on the deck of a vessel that bore his company's insignia etched subtly into the glass railings, he understood the poetry of the moment. He didn't need to raise his voice. The system itself would speak. Veronica Liney had no idea. To her, he was still the uninvited man she'd humiliated in front of 100 guests. She was the hostess of the Evangeline, a charter leased for one night by her employer, the Langford Foundation, to celebrate their rumored partnership with Aurelius Maritime. A partnership worth $4.2 billion. The irony gleamed colder than the moonlight. Tonight's gala was meant to announce the merger that would save the Langford dynasty from quiet financial collapse. And the man they'd publicly degraded was the only person whose signature could make it real. Malcolm's assistant, Celia Tran, watched from the lower deck, her phone vibrating with updates. The corporate dashboard confirmed what she already suspected. Authorization override accepted. Charter control active. Awaiting directive. She exhaled slowly. The room above had no idea it was standing on borrowed grace. Back on deck, Veronica continued to perform, filling the silence with the clinking of glasses and nervous chatter. "Everyone, please," she said. "The man has left. Let's not dwell on misunderstandings. We're here to celebrate prosperity." Malcolm heard every word. He smiled faintly, not bitterness, not pride, just recognition of how predictable arrogance could be. He looked out over the black horizon where sea met sky, remembering the one person who'd ever believed he belonged anywhere, his grandmother, Lillian Reed. She used to say, "Child, one day the world will ask you for permission to see you." That day had come quietly, aboard a vessel worth more than the entire Langford fortune. He raised his phone, the reflection of the waves dancing across its glass. One tap, a single encrypted message sent. Hold position. Disable entertainment systems. Below deck, a soft hum stopped. The music vanished mid-note. The lights shifted from gold to a colder white. Guests looked around in confusion, their laughter freezing mid-gesture. And up on the bridge, the captain's voice faltered. System override detected. Command source verified Aurelius owner protocol. The night's illusion was breaking. And for the first time, Veronica Line realized the ghost she tried to humiliate was the one who owned the sea beneath her feet. The yacht's music died mid-chord. One violin string snapped in protest, a sound so sharp it made several guests flinch. The laughter that had been struggling to survive finally gave up. Silence, that old, uncomfortable truth, took the room hostage. Veronica blinked, confused, clutching her empty glass. "What happened to the music?" she called out. The staff exchanged uncertain glances. The captain's voice crackled faintly over the intercom. "Minor technical issue, ma'am. We're resolving it." But the tremor in his tone betrayed him. Malcolm Reed stood at the edge of the upper deck, watching the reflection of the city lights ripple across the dark water. He moved his wrist slightly, just enough for the watch to wake. A single phrase appeared on the black screen, pulsing in blue. "Command ready." He didn't smile. He didn't need to. This was the point where silence became language. He whispered, calm, almost gentle. "Revoke the charter. Effective immediately." The command transmitted instantly through Aurelius's secured network. Below deck, the yacht's internal system froze, then flickered to a new status. Charter contract. Terminated. Current authority. M. Reed. The chief engineer's eyes widened. "This can't be right. He's on board." The captain's voice rose, tight and bewildered. "Repeat override authorization," confirms Malcolm Reed. That's the owner." Up on the deck, Veronica was still performing. "Honestly," she said, her laugh brittle, "it's as if the sea itself doesn't like drama." She turned, expecting reassurance, but no one met her gaze. Her assistant leaned in, whispering, "Miss Line, the control systems are locked. The entertainment, the lighting, everything's switched to owner mode." "What owner?" Veronica hissed, her face whitening. The assistant hesitated. "Aurelius Maritime Holdings." The name struck like a sudden wind. Conversations halted mid-sentence. A man in a navy suit whispered, "That's the company hosting the deal tonight, isn't it?" Another added, "But I thought their CEO couldn't make it." Malcolm turned from the sea. The deck light framed him in a cold halo. For the first time, people really looked at him not as a guest, not as an intruder, but as something entirely different. Veronica forced a laugh, brittle as shattered glass. "This is absurd," she said. "Someone's playing a prank." The captain appeared then, descending the steps from the bridge, hat in hand. He stopped near Malcolm, his voice respectful, uncertain. "Sir," he said quietly, "confirmation has been received. You are indeed the vessel's registered owner. Shall we proceed as instructed?" A collective gasp rippled through the deck. Veronica's lips parted, but no words came. Malcolm didn't look at her. His tone stayed measured, professional. "Lock external communications. No one leaves until the contract is voided. You'll find the documents ready for signature in my office below deck." The captain nodded. "Aye, sir." The phrase "aye, sir" echoed like a verdict. Veronica's knees weakened. This can't be happening," she stammered, searching for laughter that wasn't coming. You said you were just a guest." Malcolm turned his head slightly, the ocean wind brushing against his collar. "No," he said. "You assumed I was." The engines hummed lower now, the yacht shifting from motion to stillness. The sea around them was calm, unnaturally so, like an audience holding its breath. Celia appeared from below deck, tablet in hand. "Confirmation received," she said softly. "The Langford Foundation charter has been revoked. All pending contracts suspended." Malcolm nodded once. "Good. Let them enjoy the view before the storm arrives. Veronica looked around wildly. You can't just do this. This party is for the partnership. You'll ruin everything. His reply was almost kind. Correction, he said. You already did. And as he spoke, a gust of wind swept through the deck, scattering napkins and laughter alike, erasing every trace of the arrogance that had filled the air an hour before. For the first time all night, the Mediterranean sounded like applause. The sea had gone eerily still, as if even the tide refused to move without Malcolm's permission. A hush fell over the deck, the kind of silence that doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. Every guest stood motionless under the cold white light, faces pale, champagne forgotten. The captain retreated to the bridge to execute the order. Below, the yacht's control systems shifted completely into private lockdown mode. The navigation screens blinked. Access restricted, owner protocol engaged. A low mechanical hum rolled through the hull, steady and final. Veronica Liney's voice cracked the silence like brittle glass. What's happening? Why aren't we moving? The chief steward approached her hesitantly. Ma'am, the captain says, the yacht's charter has been canceled. We're under owner authority now. Her expression warped in disbelief. That's impossible. The Langford Foundation leased this vessel weeks ago. Yes, ma'am, the steward replied softly. But the ownership belongs to Aurelius Maritime. The name hung in the air again, this time like a sentence. Heads turned toward Malcolm. The same people who had laughed now looked at him the way people look at approaching weather. He remained calm, one hand resting on the rail, his reflection steady against the dark sea. You may want to sit, he said quietly. The night's about to get longer. No one moved. Even the servers stood still, caught between obedience and awe. Veronica finally found her voice. You can't humiliate us like this, she snapped, every vowel trembling. Do you have any idea who we are? Malcolm turned to face her. The deck lights caught the faint streak of red wine still dried on his sleeve. His reply came soft, deliberate. I used to care about who people said they were. Now I care about what they do when they think no one's watching. A whisper ran through the guests, thin as the wind. Cameras that once hunted spectacle were now lowered, almost respectfully. The line between oppressor and audience had blurred. Veronica's fiancé, a tall man in a white tuxedo, stepped forward, trying to reclaim control. This is absurd, he barked. Apologize for this stunt before you regret it. Malcolm's eyes barely flicked toward him. Regret, he said, is what happens after arrogance runs out of vocabulary. The man's jaw tightened. He said nothing more. From the bridge came the captain's voice, low and composed. Sir, all external communication channels have been paused, per your instruction. Malcolm nodded once. Good. Maintain position until further notice. Celia approached from below deck, her steps quiet against the teak floor. Sir, the press team is requesting a statement. The Langford representatives have been trying to reach you for the past 20 minutes. Malcolm glanced toward the sea. Tell them the meeting started early, he said. They're already in attendance. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, understanding too late that this wasn't a scene, it was a lesson. Veronica clutched her bracelet, voice trembling between defiance and desperation. You're destroying an evening meant for goodwill. No, Malcolm replied. I'm preserving truth. Goodwill built on contempt isn't worth the champagne it's poured from. Lightning flashed far off over the horizon, illuminating the white curve of the yacht against black water. The sound took several seconds to arrive, a low, delayed rumble that felt like the sky agreeing. Malcolm exhaled slowly, almost serenely. You'll all have time to reflect, he said. The press will call this a cancellation. I prefer to think of it as a correction. The air thickened. No one dared to move. And then, as if on cue, a notification pinged softly from Celia's tablet. She looked up. Sir, she said, your directive is complete. All Langford assets tied to the partnership are now frozen pending audit. Malcolm turned, his voice no louder than before, but sharper than any storm. Then let them feel what stillness really means. The engines went silent. The world around the Evangeline stopped moving. And for the first time all evening, the ocean seemed to bow. From the shore, the Evangeline looked like a ghost ship frozen in place, lights dimmed to a cold, clinical glow. What had begun as an exclusive celebration was now a silent theater of reckoning, and the world was about to buy front-row seats. It started with one phone. A guest, a fashion influencer with 2 million followers, had been filming earlier, capturing Veronica's humiliation of the uninvited man. The clip, only 40 seconds long, had already gone viral before the yacht lost its signal. The video title read, "Hostess kicks out black guest on luxury yacht, then something crazy happens." By the time the systems locked down, hashtags were multiplying like wildfire. Number yacht justice, number Aurelius Reed, number respect is luxury, number power moves silently. Onshore, news outlets scrambled to confirm the story. A rumor spread that the man in the video wasn't a guest at all, that he owned the very yacht where the incident took place. Someone posted a screenshot of the public maritime registry showing the vessel's ownership, Aurelius Maritime Holdings. The name matched the company leading a $4.2 billion merger with the Langford Foundation. Within minutes, business journalists joined the frenzy. Blooming Street, Forbes Wire, and Maritime Watch all pushed breaking alerts. Merger in jeopardy. Black CEO Malcolm Reed, identified as owner of the Evangeline. Back on deck, Malcolm's phone vibrated once. Celia glanced at her tablet, reading the flood of notifications. "Sir, it's everywhere," she whispered. "The world knows." He didn't respond. His eyes were on Veronica, who now stood pale and trembling, surrounded by the same people who had once applauded her cruelty. Their smiles were gone. Their voices were whispers of self-preservation. One investor muttered, "We didn't know who he was." Another whispered, "We have to fix this before morning." Malcolm spoke quietly, but everyone heard. "You can't fix what you refuse to see." His voice carried like the wind, low and steady, cutting through the metallic hum of the halted engines. Far above, drones from nearby news boats began circling, their red recording lights blinking through the dark. The story had escaped containment. The sea itself was a broadcast now. Veronica's phone buzzed in her hand, dozens of missed calls, messages from her PR manager, from the Langford chairman, even her mother. "Turn it around, apologize, do something." Her lipstick quivered as she tried to find her script. "Mr. Reed," she began, the practiced charm leaking from her tone. I didn't realize. If I'd known." He cut her off gently. "That's the problem, Veronica. You didn't need to know who I was to know how to treat me." The deck went utterly silent again. Someone near the bar whispered, "That line's going to end up in a headline." Celia's tablet pinged once more. "Sir, confirmation from the financial division. Langford's shares dropped 11% in the last 20 minutes. Markets reacting to the leak." Malcolm nodded once. Then truth travels faster than I expected. Thunder rolled again over the horizon, closer this time like punctuation. From below deck, the captain approached carefully. "Sir," he said, "media vessels approaching." "Orders?" Malcolm turned toward the open sea. "Let them come," he said. "They're not here for spectacle, they're here for evidence." Veronica's facade cracked completely. Tears streaked through her mascara as she pleaded, "Please, Malcolm, we can fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." He faced her fully now, his expression unreadable. "It wasn't a misunderstanding," he said. "It was a mirror, and you finally looked into it." The first flashbulbs went off from the approaching press boats. The cameras caught everything, the frozen crowd, the trembling hostess, and the calm, unshaken figure standing against the sea wind. By midnight, the image would circle the world. The black CEO who stopped the ocean, and every caption beneath it would tell the same story. That dignity, once awakened, doesn't whisper, it roars. The following minutes stretched like hours. The wind had slowed, the waves gentled, but the air still carried that strange electricity, the kind that hums right before thunder finally admits it's been holding back. Every soul aboard the Evangeline stood caught between disbelief and dread. Veronica Lane was no longer glowing under chandeliers. She was shrinking beneath them. Her sequin gown, once dazzling, now looked like armor cracked under its own weight. Her voice came soft, strangled. "Mr. Reed, please. I didn't mean it was a misunderstanding. I didn't know." Malcolm didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, where faint flashes of cameras from nearby press boats blinked like distant lightning. "You didn't need to know," he said quietly. "You just needed to remember what respect sounds like." Veronica's fiancé stepped forward, desperate to salvage what remained of their reputation. "Let's be reasonable. This is just unfortunate optics. We can issue a statement, repair the narrative." Malcolm turned his gaze on him, and the man froze mid-sentence. You think this is about narrative? Malcolm asked. No, it's about accountability. Something your circles often confuse with inconvenience. A ripple of murmurs swept through the deck. Some guests avoided eye contact. Others looked at him with something new. Not pity, not fear, but a dawning, reluctant respect. Celia stepped closer, tablet in hand. Sir, she said softly, the audit teams are online. The Langford accounts are officially suspended pending review. Their legal counsel just requested a meeting. Malcolm nodded once. They'll get one, he said. Tomorrow. In daylight. When the cameras don't need flash to see the truth. Veronica's lips parted in panic. Wait, the merger that deal keeps hundreds of people employed. If you cancel it now, you'll destroy lives. He turned to her, his voice calm, almost sorrowful. Those jobs were already gone, Veronica. Your foundation's been bleeding money for a year. You held this party to look solvent long enough for my signature to save you. But the problem isn't insolvency, it's integrity. Her breath hitched. The truth stung more than the humiliation. He continued, each word slow, deliberate, as if carving the moment into marble. Aurelius will honor every worker, every contractor, every shipwright your family left unpaid. But the Langford Foundation ends tonight. The silence that followed felt holy. Even the sea seemed to draw back to listen. Celia handed him the tablet. The illuminated screen displayed a single line. Charter funds reallocated pending recipient authorization. Malcolm tapped once, then looked at Veronica. Since this event was supposed to raise money for ocean education initiatives, he said, his tone almost polite, I'll make sure the cause gets what it deserves. He nodded to Celia. She spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the still night. Effective immediately, the $12.6 million gala fund has been transferred to the Horizon Youth Foundation, an independent maritime scholarship program for underrepresented students. Fully endowed, permanently. A collective gasp broke the silence. Veronica swayed on her heels. You can't do that, she whispered. That money was pledged in my name. Malcolm's answer was a scalpel. Names don't own virtue. Actions do. Her diamond bracelet clinked as her hands trembled. You're ruining me. Then use for Flime. Then Ted. He shook his head slowly. No. You did that the moment you mistook cruelty for class. The words sank like anchors. A few guests, the ones who had laughed earlier, began to applaud softly. Not mockingly, not performatively, just slow, stunned acknowledgement. One woman near the bar whispered, About time someone like him owned the room. Veronica turned, eyes wet, mascara streaking down like confession. Please, Malcolm, she pleaded. Don't destroy everything. He stepped closer, voice low enough that only she could hear. You destroyed yourself the moment you built your worth on making others feel smaller. Then, louder for everyone to hear. Power doesn't corrupt. Entitlement does. And tonight we reset the balance. The deck lights dimmed again, shifting from sterile white to a soft amber glow. The captain, watching from the bridge, seemed to understand the symbolism. The party was over, but the lesson had just begun. Celia announced gently, Press boats are requesting permission to dock, sir. Malcolm looked toward the horizon. The first light of dawn was beginning to tint the water with silver. Let them, he said. They came for a scandal. They'll leave with a sermon. He turned back to Veronica one last time. Tomorrow morning, he said, you'll release a statement. Not a performance, a truth. You'll admit what happened here. You'll apologize publicly to everyone who has ever stood where I stood tonight, underestimated, dismissed, erased. And you'll do it because it's right, not because it's viral. She nodded weakly, tears clinging to her lashes. Malcolm straightened his cufflinks, the faintest trace of red still marking his sleeve. Dignity doesn't ask for apology, he said quietly. It waits for history to do the writing. 7% desire when he last to the last. Inbraided in. The first sunbeam touched the horizon, spilling light across the deck, washing over silver gowns and wilted arrogance alike. The sea stirred again, finally moving after its long pause. And as dawn broke over the Riviera, the world watched one truth rise with it. Grace can be sharper than revenge. And sometimes, justice doesn't shout. It simply signs the transfer. By sunrise, the Evangeline glided toward shore, silent and regal, as if the sea itself had granted absolution. The guests had scattered to corners of reflection. No one spoke above a whisper. Malcolm stood alone at the bow, coat catching the wind, eyes steady on the widening light. Celia joined him quietly. "What now?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Now we rebuild, but cleaner." She nodded. The horizon glowed gold, soft and unjudging. Malcolm's voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't rise to prove them wrong. We rise because we always belonged."